Thelema Coast to Coast, December 31st, 2007. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Welcome to Thelema Coast to Coast. My name is John Crow, and I'm the host of the show. It's been a little while since the last one came out, and so I wanted to get one more show in before the end of the year. And actually, this is going to be the last show for Thelema Coast to Coast for quite a while. As I said before, I had hoped to be able to produce more shows since moving to Europe and going to graduate school, but time constraints and schedule really just do not allow it. Plus, there's a number of technical difficulties and a number of other things. It's time that I kind of put this project on the shelf. And as such, I will not be producing any more shows anytime soon. This is not completely closing the door on the podcast, but I really don't see it coming out anytime soon. And if it should resurrect, it would be in a very different format. So anyway, I'm sorry to those who are disappointed by this. All good things must come to an end. And so the podcast, instead of just kind of drifting away, I felt it was better to just kind of make the announcement and put that out. I still have one interview with Keith 418, giving him his chance to say goodbye. And, I will be keeping the podcast website up for at least another year. And also, I will be moving the MP3 files to an internet archiving system, which will keep them available, but it will be on their terms and no longer through my hosting service, which costs well over $100 a year. And so that probably will be happening. That move will be happening over the next 3 months. So I will be leaving Libsyn probably in the spring, but I will be keeping things going on the website. And if anything comes out or any new announcements, that would be the place to go. I will also be keeping up my blog and at www.thelema.new. And that will be the best way to get in touch with me and or see what I've been writing and what other projects I've been working on. Because I'm certainly not going to go away. It's just time for Thelema Coast to Coast to end. So without further ado, I will give you Keith 418. Hey, Keith 93, welcome back to the podcast. How have you been?
93, John. Thanks for having me. I've been fun.
Well, as I've announced earlier in the show, this is the last podcast for Thelema Coast to Coast. It's basically been 2 years that I've been running, a little over 2 years, and just basically, time has caught up with me, and my life is no longer in a place where I can keep the show out at a regular time, and instead of it just kind of fading away, I think it makes sense to just kind of end it. So I wanted to give you a chance, though, to come on the show and, kind of sign off and let people know some parting thoughts or so forth.
Well, thanks for having me on again, John. I mean, I'm sorry that the podcast is ending. I think that it served a very great function and was really important while you had it on. So I'm a little sad that it's gone. On the other hand, I feel like all these things come to an end, and I think in a lot of ways what people might want to take out of the end of the podcast is that this is an opportunity that it reveals a void that other people can fill. One of the saddest things I think about your efforts, not only with your blog but also with the podcast, is the sort of like lack of lack of follow through on behalf of a lot of other people. I mean, this was an opportunity and an example for other people to follow, other people to get active with. They could have followed your lead. There could be a lot of podcasts. There could be a lot of activity like this. And I think both of us were really hoping that there would be a sort of flowering of discourse on more advanced topics, and the Thelema community would kind of, in a sense, grow up a little bit and stop with these wretched little mimeograph newsletters that nobody ever reads, or never reads after the first pass, or the kind of transient people who come into the community and go out of it again after proclaiming how wonderful they are and then sort of disappearing. And I think those of us kind of hope that there would be a deeper sort of questioning and a deeper examination that might follow from the podcast. And to a certain extent, I think that that's happened, that people have realized that there are, more interesting places to go than the OTO in particular has been showing them lately. On the other hand, I'm kind of disappointed in that I feel very few people have really picked up the baton and followed your example and said, hey, how can we look at these questions more deeply? How can we start to get below the surface of the usual occult nonsense and rigmarole and start to really ask some tough questions and really look at things that we might not be have been willing to do before.
Well, you're right. I mean, it is unfortunate that after over 2 years now, nobody's really kind of really followed through on creating another Thelemic podcast, or even one that seriously looks at occultism. There have been a few that have kind of blossomed around personalities of the occult, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But nobody's really kind of taking a look at occultism. Nobody's really looking at subjects and looking at some of the history and the practical way occultism is manifesting today. And and as that was one of the main points about the podcast, was to look at occultism today and also its history and looking at the continuity of how we got here. But I really wanted to focus on how it is today. And maybe somebody will pick up the ball and run with it after they heard that the podcast has ceased to be. So, we could always hope, but there is a definite lack of production out there. And
I think that's one of the things you and I have been talking about a lot lately, is the role of authority and the role of production. And you look at so many people in the occult community, and they think that that their opinions, without any work behind it, without anything really to show for it, have this enormous validity and this authority that we should all kowtow to. And in fact, that's never really the case with anything. If you want to be an authority, if you want to be somebody whose words have power and meaning in the larger world, then if you want to have the power to change the universe, you really have to produce. You have to do things. And I was having a conversation recently with a friend of mine where I was saying, Aleister Crowley did not get to be powerful by sitting in an attic and never writing any books or publishing anything and just insisting that he was the Magus. That's not, how he got to be where he is in the grand scheme of things. He worked and he produced and he, published books, and this is something that I think this basic concept eludes so many people in the occult community. We had a discussion on your blog recently with somebody who was going off about various writers, and I was challenging them, saying, hey, do a blog where you talk about this, do a podcast, do a lecture, get your information out there so we can all evaluate it and see whether this is really happening. And one of my yoga teachers was saying that he's less interested in people talking about, why they don't like Aleister Crowley, and more interested in what techniques they are using to attain. And I've been thinking about this because it seems to me that part of the issue that we've got here is that people think that because of this sort of egalitarian mindset that everybody's equal to each other and we're all stars or we're all gods or goddesses, they don't have to do any work or produce anything in order to be respected and to have their opinion taken seriously. And that's just not the case. If that were true, there wouldn't be any books about magic out there at all. You wouldn't need them. And I think the OTO, even the leaders, are kind of hung up on this problem. On the one hand, they believe in egalitarianism, and on the other hand, they have this hierarchy. On the one hand, they believe in not judging people because who are you to judge somebody else? And then on the other hand, they are very angry when people show poor judgment that causes them problems. So these contradictions are things that they, rather than grappling with the way I think we encourage people to start